calling this Patton Township Board of Supervisors meeting April 23rd, 2025 to order. If you are all able, please stand for the saying of our pledge of allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, I want to thank those who are here in person as well as those who are attending remotely. Again, we like to talk about Patton Township, which is welcoming of everyone and that we like to refer to as a place for all. At this time, are there any additions to the posted agenda? Seeing none, moving on. Public comments, so we allow residents and taxpayers to address the board of issues relevant to the township. If there's anything relevant to items that will be in the agenda, we ask that those comments be deferred until that time. But at this time, any public comments? So as you're able, state your name and locale. And
Hello, my name is Elliot Killian. I reside in Ferguson Township. You have moved my R4 proposal to the Planning Commission. Thank you very much. If implemented, that will not solve the township's problem of housing being unaffordable. You'll have to adopt several changes. One of them should include allowing ADUs, accessory dwelling units. They're also called granny flats or in-law suites. I wrote a report and I emailed it to supervisors for Patton Township about ADUs. All my reports are available on my website, elliotkillian.com. In the report, I suggest the following things: allowing ADUs with the same height as the principal structure, so the house, allowing ADUs in all residential zones, reducing and standardizing side yard setbacks, and incentivizing modern stormwater technologies to increase building and impervious coverage. I predict that there will be some in the community that will oppose the proposed R4 and allowed ADUs. NIMBY, not in my backyard. I believe NIMBY is a human reaction. It is a mixture of greed and fear. Fear of change, that the possibility of the negative aspects of the change, and greed because we humans want to see only the positive aspects of the change. If change is needed, we want it to benefit ourselves, right? It can't just benefit someone else, it has to benefit us. People who fear change and don't see the positive impact to themselves will use their political power to stop a project. We as a community need to recognize that change is needed and will bring both positive and negative impacts to a community. The need for change for housing at the local level, county level, and national level is at a critical level. We are in dire need of more housing. Change is needed. We should not allow ADUs. We should not only allow ADUs, but we should see it as a right for people to build ADUs, and a right that cannot be taken away from a NIMBY reaction. I ask you to send my report about allowing ADUs to the Planning Commission for them to review it. Thank you very much for serving local government.
thank you.
Thank you.
Any thoughts, reactions from the board?
Just sincere thanks for bringing this again to the fore. And I will mention, I would love to get that information to you, Elliot, that Patton Township actually tried to introduce ADUs to R2 in R2 zoning, and it was for lots of a certain size, so it's not for all. It was when we had a planner named Nicole Pollack. And so I've asked our manager to get that. I'd like to read it myself. I couldn't remember what year it was, so I didn't. It would have been hard for me to look it up. yeah, I think it's about time. And I think we learned a lot from introducing it. It was not a successful introduction, and we said we would look at it later, one of those, not do it later, so now's the time. So I thank you for that. Add that to your list of resources.
Any other thoughts? Yeah, thanks for the continued activism and providing more for us to sort of consider, so.
Okay.
All right.
We do have one other public comment that was emailed to the board. If you want me to read that, I can.
Yes.
Okay.
And if we can try to get as close to mics as possible, that would be great,
Okay.
everyone.
So the letter is from Joan Bouchard, who lives at the Village at Penn State. She said, I believe that Patton Township should set the example for the rest of the townships and the whole of Center County itself by approving a ban on the use of these disposable plastics by businesses in Patton Township. We've all been kicking around the idea of doing something to limit their use for years, ever since Pam Steckler of blessed memory first began advocating this long ago. As a member of our recycling committee here at the Village at Penn State, I'm appalled by how many of these things end up in our refuse stream. And we are just one community, in one township, in one city, in one state, in this country, and it scares me to death to think about how much of this plastic trash ends up in our national recycling stream daily. Will our grandchildren's homes have to be built on top of landfills? It looks like it the way we're going, unless someone in Pennsylvania starts to do something about this. And why not us, here and now? You, the supervisors of Patton Township, can do this today, and I'll be in the audience to watch this historic step in honor of Earth Day. And I did respond to Joan. I think I copied all of you on the response. We actually have a regional working group that's been looking at the single-use plastics for a while. The municipal managers are meeting May 9th. There were some ideas that they wanted the working group to follow up on after we presented the initial draft ordinance to them. We're meeting May 9th, and the goal, I think, is to have something before you in June, and then we would go out and do a public engagement, because it will be a big change for folks, and we want to get feedback in particular from small businesses on the proposed language. So it is in play. It's starting. It's State College, Ferguson, and Patton Townships, and so hopefully we'll have something in place here towards the middle of the year.
Was it for State College, Ferguson, and Patton?
Yep.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
All right, anything else on that? All right, moving on. Thank you, Joan, for that email. So the proclamation designating May as National Bike Month. So I guess there's a proclamation that,
Yes, we do this every year. May is National Bike Month. And they're also asking this year that we designate May 16th as Bike to Work Day and Center Region Spring Bike Anywhere Friday.
all right. Well, I can read it.
Want to read it?
Sure. So, a proclamation of the Township of Patton, Center County, Pennsylvania, designating May 2025 as, quote, Bike Month, end quote. May 12th through May 18th, 2025 as, quote, Bike to Work Week, end quote. And May 16th, 2025 as, quote, Bike to Work Day, and, end quote. Do I need to do that? And, quote, Center Region Spring Bike Anywhere Friday, end quote. Whereas the Patton Township supports the efforts of Center Bike to promote bicycle commuting in the Center Region, and whereas Patton Township recognizes the benefit of bicycle and pedestrian commuting in providing exercise, decreasing air pollution, conserving fuel, decreasing traffic congestion, decreasing noise pollution, and improving the health of its citizens. And whereas Patton Township maintains and continues to develop facilities to promote bicycling and walking as means of transportation. Whereas the Center Region is recognized as a bicycle-friendly community at the silver level from the League of American Bicyclists for its efforts to engage the community in bicycle riding through collaboration with the Center Region municipalities, Penn State, and Center Bike. Now, therefore, Patton Township's Council hereby designates May 2025 as Bike Month, May 12th through May 18th, 2025 as Bike to Work Week, and May 16th, 2025 as Bike to Work Day, and Center Region Spring Bike Anywhere Friday. proclaimed this 23rd day of April 2025. A motion?
So moved.
I'll second.
Second. Comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any nays? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Are law enforcement going to start biking here soon? Weather's good.
I'm sorry?
Do we have a bicycle patrol?
We do. We have 3 bikes and about 8 officers who are certified to do bike patrol. So,
Are they out yet?
They are. Last month I reported they did about 37 miles, and we're hard at it again here in April. So, yep,
Just had to remind the public.
that's it. They're out.
And I forgot. And my mic keeps coming off. All right, moving on. CNET update.
We have Miss Cindy here to give us the update.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to present to you. My speech has been somewhat affected, and so it is a little slow. If you have trouble understanding anything that I say, please ask me to repeat. My lovely assistant here will
I will move it along.
We'll move along the presentation. There were 527 programs produced by our very small staff, 4 full-time and 3 part-time people. So that is quite a lot of content for 7 people to produce. Our membership increased to 17 members with the addition of CATA. And our closed captioning initiative started last February. That is an optional service for members at a cost of $17 per hour. And, you know, I really expected there to be something like 5 members signing on. As of now, 14 of the 17 have signed up for this, so I was very pleased. Your programming, 20 Board of Supervisors meeting, 9 Planning Commission, and about a quarter of the Penn State meteorology program. You do 25%, Harris does 25%, and Penn State pays for the remaining 50% of the programming. So a total of 33 programs last year. There were 43 bulletin board messages. Most of those, of course, are agendas for supervisors and planning commission. We value the messages at 1/10 of a program. So those 43 messages account for an additional 4.3 programs. So if you do the math, your grand total for the year is 37.3. That is about 7.1% of all of the programming by all of the members last year. That's down just a little bit from 2023, but we did add a new member. So you could expect as a percentage, every what you do will go down when new members are added. This graph shows you what your programming looks like over the past 5 years. And you sponsored over the past 5 years, between 2020 and 2024, you sponsored about 7.8% by all of the programs, by all of our members. That is down a little bit from the the 2019 to 2023 period, but not a tremendous amount. Your programming is basically very consistent. The funding formula is based on that 5-year period, and so it's very important to realize 2020 through 2024 will determine your 2026 dues. This is all of our members over the 5-year period of time, with the red arrow pointing to Patton Township. You're pretty solidly in the middle of the pack. College and Ferguson tend to have more planning commission meetings covered, so they're ahead. State College Borough is the largest user of our services. In terms of where to watch, your supervisors' meetings, of course, are live on Channel 7. They are streamed live on YouTube, and they are rebroadcast Saturdays at noon, Monday at 6 a.m., and Tuesday at 12 a.m. for the insomniacs. Planning Commission meetings follow the same basic airing schedule, but they're not aired live. CNET1.org, the programs will remain available on demand with chaptered and clickable agenda items for a minimum of 12 months. We will soon be increasing the storage online. So you are likely to see about 18 months and then about 2 years being kept online. Those programs on our website are the ones that are captioned. And I wanted to give you an idea of how much we put on YouTube. Quite a few programs on our YouTube channel that has currently over 1,400 subscribers. Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire. There are video tutorials of how to watch CNET on each of those platforms on our website. So it's very easy to find and learn to use. So between January of 24 to March of 25, an average of 50.5 views of the supervisors and another 66 views on YouTube. Planning Commission 40.8 on CNET1.org and another 59.8 on YouTube. Of course, these are only online. Cable television data is not available. So you are solidly in front of Planning Commission, ahead of them, so you can tell them that at your next social function. And that's it. I know I went really quickly, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have. I hope you were able to understand most of what I said. Okay.
All of it.
Very understandable, and appreciate you being here. Before I ask questions, any
I
thought?
can understand you better than I can understand Sutan.
Okay.
Anyone have any questions or reactions? Supervisor Whitman?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Archived versions. I think once I did ask for an archived, and there was a fee for it, which I don't know, $5 or whatever. But it's interesting because, for example, earlier.
Mike, please.
Oh, Okay.
CNET's giving me instruction.
Yeah, so earlier, well, when Elliot Killian was speaking about AD, accessible dwelling units, I was remembering the Planning Commission where we had discussed that several years ago. So it never even made it to the Board of Supervisors, but that's something that I might be interested in watching again. They are
Right.
available, and how do we go about
They
doing that?
are available. You may order a copy from us, which you can get as a DVD or as a downloadable digital file.
Okay.
We request a $20 donation
That's fine. Yeah.
for those copies.
Yeah.
But we have meetings going back over 20 years available. So, yeah.
Yeah, that actually might be an interesting meeting.
Yeah, I'll
to
get
watch.
that.
Yeah. The Planning Commission meeting was. Thank you so much for that.
Sure,
Yeah. That was a
sure.
great service. Can't remember what I used it for, but it was nice to have that.
Good.
Sorry,
Good.
Sue Tom.
It's all right. We talked about accessory dwelling units last year. Here,
Pardon?
Not
Okay.
last year.
2 years
It
ago?
was 22 or 21.
When Nicole was
Yeah.
here?
I think it was 21,
Huh.
because that was when we had the task force. I'll look in the minutes and find the date, but I will get the meeting.
Yeah. Okay. Any more questions, reactions?
Yes.
Supervisor Rob?
I just want to say thank you to Cindy and to the CNET board because I've learned a lot. I also want to thank Amy for sitting in for me before I got started. But at each meeting is very informative, and thank you for that. I look forward to continuing being on the board and learning more on how everything works. And to your staff, continue to give them kudos. Thank you for all that you do. Rain, sleet, or snow, you are here and at our other municipality meetings, and we truly appreciate all of you, your staff. So thank you all.
Certainly, thank you. We do have a really wonderful board, of which Pam is a part, and the board works very well together. They're asked to review policies every year, and they really all do a great job. And usually, the budget process is not painful, so I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yes, two things. One, I remember it was like last year or 2 years ago, you were talking about the difficulty with the municipalities and their meeting times and trying to make sure that, I'll take this off so you can see my lips, trying to like coordinate to get to all those meetings. I'm wondering, like, has that been sort of like resolved? Do you feel like amongst the different municipalities?
Yeah, people tend to move their meetings, not that they check with us before they move.
Okay.
For the most part, it's pretty easily done. I would say when you go earlier than 5:30, so you're at 5:30, which is fine. When it moves earlier than that, we have some difficulty getting interns whose class schedule allows them to be in the office by, earlier, an hour before, so earlier than that. So 5:30 is fine. And we are juggling, 17 members, many of whom do more than one meeting. So it is a bit of a juggling act, but it's working out fine.
Okay. I'm glad that more entities have sort of paid for the closed captioning. It's nice to see, as well as just the numbers. And I know that was just for, views on YouTube. So I imagine those are higher, but it's cool to see that people are actually tuning in and utilizing the service. I'm just wondering, from y'all's perspective, any other innovative things that y'all are thinking of over the next 5 or 10 years?
Well, I think that we are always looking at ways to adopt streaming technology, which is dependable, resilient, and the technology makes it easier to use. Part of what Abby does as the production manager is evaluate that technology constantly. So we're hoping this year to try to get a new piece of software that allows us to go live stream in the field. So that has yet to be evaluated, but yes, that is probably one of our biggest challenges. The technology changes often, and every time it changes, there are pros and cons to the new technology. So I would say that is forefront.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. I think that's all we have. Anything that we can be helpful with at this time?
Just speak into your mic. Always.
So,
Thank you very much.
take
Thank
care.
you.
She ain't talking to me because I didn't get it. It's the rest of y'all.
It's Elliot.
All right. Public safety, there are no items at this time.
Actually, the chief would like to say something.
And I'm going to heed Cindy's warning and bring my mic a little bit closer. So there's 3 events that I just want to highlight that we have coming up here. This coming Saturday, the 26th, we'll have an officer at Wegmans for a prescription drug take-back event. We've partnered with Wegmans over the past few years. It's always been a very successful event, but we're trying to get the word out as best as possible. It's been on our Facebook page and social media. But again, it's this Saturday, April 26th, from 10 a.m. until 2 p.m. at Wegmans, and it's going to be in the vestibule and the entrance and exit, just inside the store. So you're welcome to bring any unwanted, unused prescription medications that you would like to have safely disposed of. So we're happy to help out with that. On May 1st, which is Thursday, from 11 a.m. until 3 p.m. at Target, 315 Colonnade Boulevard. Again, we'll be having a car seat check and car seat installation event, partnering with Target. We'll have a few officers down there to be able to, again, check to make sure that car seats are properly installed for any children and for any parents that would like to bring their vehicles in to have them checked. And then lastly, just to put it on everybody's radar, again, our safety fair, Saturday, May 17th, from 10 a.m. until 3 p.m., and that'll be in the parking lot between Target and Kohl's. And so we're really looking forward to that event, and a lot of planning has gone into that over the past few weeks. And we'll continue on for the next 3 weeks or so until the event's here. So, but we're looking forward to that, hoping for some good weather. And I don't want to let the cat totally out of the bag, but keep an eye out on Monday. We're going to be releasing information about our police hiring as well. So we'll start accepting applications beginning on Monday the 28th through the end of May.
Full-time position or part-time?
This is going to be for a full-time position, yes.
All right.
All right.
Why can't I? Oh, I get it. Pay increases for police.
That's all I have, though. Thank you.
All right. Thoughts, questions? All right. That's what, as Cindy was talking, I was thinking about, I know we're middle of the pack and wondering, are there other events that we could have CNET at that's not just Board of Supervisors meeting and Planning Commission? I know, like Safety Fair, for example, I know we advertise these things, and, it's one thing like here at see it on print, another thing to actually like see it in live and wondering, are those types of things that we could potentially have CNET there for a little bit just to like,
Yeah, so just a couple of thoughts. Harris Township has them there for Memorial Day. They do a whole program on Memorial Day every year, and they cover the whole day in town in the service. Harris Township also sponsors, there's a military series lecture over at the Military Museum. So you could put it out there that if there were community groups that were gonna have a lecture in the township and they wanted to have coverage on CNET, they would come to you and ask for sponsorship, because you can't do that without sponsorship from a member. And that would be a way, like, if, for example, if the community diversity group is doing something at Toff Trees or, somewhere in the township, for example, you could offer that you could put that lecture or whatever online. So just a thought.
all right, well, let's, community, do that. Is there a way we can advertise that, maybe online or?
Yeah, let me think about that, and let me talk to Sophie, and also just maybe reaching out to some of the groups that are already involved, that we know of in town, some of the community groups, just to let them know. And also maybe reaching out to Terry Watson, just to let him know as well, because he seems to be pretty tapped into a lot of things that are going on, and maybe even Strategies for Justice would want to put something out. Yeah, let me do some digging about that, but there's just a thought.
Yeah, untapped resource, so I think
Yeah.
more exposure, accessibility to
The
our residents, the things that we do would be good.
Community Diversity Group regularly puts on its multicultural fair.
Yep.
Which I've watched. I've never been able to go in person, so, yeah.
Excuse me.
Supervisor Rob?
Since Amy brought up the military museum, I'll be representing Patton. I'm speaking Memorial Day for the veterans. So it's for the Remembrance Walk. So I'm looking forward to it and looking forward to representing Patton Township.
Thank you. I did have a question. I forgot to ask Cindy. I think it was the fee for the weather, us 25, Harris 25, and then Penn State 50.
Yep.
What's that arrangement?
So it's been that way since, I want to say 2008 or 2009. So they have a student-run weather program that they do. This is not the Whether or Not program, which is the one that's funded by the university completely. This is for the students. So the university had agreed to pay 50% of it. The students had to find another way to get it sponsored and get it online. So I believe Harris picked it up because we had a bunch of the meteorologists that were involved in it living in Harris Township. And I believe Elliot, who's online, might have had something to do with them joining with Patton years ago. But it's always been a joint program between Harris, Patton, and Penn State.
And so this is run by the students?
Yes, yeah, it's the students' campus weather service, I think it's called.
Okay. It would be nice for them to like come here.
So in Harris Township, we used to have them come at budget time, and they would make, anybody that wanted to make a request of the township for funding would come and make a request. So the students used to come every year and make a request. I can certainly have them, we haven't done that in the past here. I think it's a great step. We can certainly invite them to come and make a request before you.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful.
Yeah.
It's a great experience for them, too.
Yeah, great experience for them and just accountability and stuff too. I know when we're spending taxpayer dollars, we obviously want to have accountability with that. And there's a lot of entities that come and ask, for things. And I think it would be, things can go awry when we're just doling out, resources without any accountability. So yeah, it'd be great for them to come and learn from them and yeah.
Happy to do that.
I guess, does the rest of the board agree with that?
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. Yeah. Mhm. And I think
Elliot's waving his hand in favor.
Good to see you, Supervisor Abrams.
Yeah, welcome back. Yay.
Yay.
All right. All right. Moving on. Public Works, 2025 milling and overlay contract.
So I will take this one, and then Michelle is here if you have questions about this. So the 2025 operating budget included $299,350 to overlay part of North Oak Lane, which finishes the section we did last time, sorry.
Everyone, please move your mics
Sorry, I'm
close
not
to your
loud
face.
enough on my own. and Christopher Lane. The two projects were combined into one bid to try to solicit better numbers. Bids were opened on April 18th. We had two bids submitted, with the low bid being submitted by Glen O. Hawbaker in the amount of $187,787. We did receive, thanks to Michelle, two grants for the work along North Oak Lane, $65,000 from the county for drainage work and $106,875 from the state for the stormwater and also the paving. So we're actually going to put another project out to bid for the stormwater just along that stretch of road later this summer. So Michelle is recommending that we award the bid to Glen O. Hawbaker in the amount of $187,787.
Yeah, well, I guess we'll make the motion, then I have a question. I'll take a motion
So moved.
as stated in the agenda. Did have a second?
I'll second.
All right.
Second.
Questions, comments?
So I have a question. You just probably explain a procedure. So I noticed on the official bid sheet that the optional bid items, if you look at the two bids, actually, yeah, the optional bid items that were submitted by HRI were much lower than Hawbaker's. And so if you add those to the base price, HRI would be less expensive. But I'm assuming that the optional bid items are there because we don't know at this point if we'll actually need those items, and replacing existing inlets, so you don't know until they actually start doing the work. And at that point, you would
Yep.
rebid it, perhaps? Is
No,
that-
I'll let Michelle explain.
Okay.
So Betsy, I'm going to divide those optional bid items into two categories. We have a lot of the inlet work in there, but we also have some warm mixed asphalt wearing course, some 2A aggregate backfill. Those are some items on there that we don't know if we will need or not. We don't anticipate that
yeah.
we'll need any great quantities, but we seem to have better results locking in a price for those as opposed to waiting till we dig something out. You know, we're removing some old curbing on both Christopher and North Oak Lane.
Right,
We're not 100% sure how that will come off. We have an
Okay.
idea, but we may end up with some basically holes in underneath it that we need to backfill. So we put optional
Yeah.
items in there to provide a mechanism, an easy mechanism for us to say, as we're standing outside one day in an afternoon, that, hey, we need a couple truckloads of stone, those items are in there, and those items will, may or may not be used. And the stormwater inlets, we had some great discussion on those, whether to be done in-house, whether we could afford to do it with the contractor. And my recommendation is that we do not include those in the bid. We stick with just the paving, and we seek other solutions to get that done. Those inlets, you know, they are very much expensive, in my professional opinion, compared to if you just went out and bought a precast inlet and put it in there. There's some uncertainty in that too, because we're dealing with old corrugated metal pipe that's been there since Park Forest was constructed. So it's very old. The bottom is rusted out of a good bit of it, and those inlets aren't what you're used to seeing. You know, we would expect to see piping in front of the curb, on the street side of the curb, the inlets there. That's not what we have out there. We have inlets that go back in towards the sidewalk, and they are made of cinder blocks, bricks, some with the concrete facing on it. It's a difficult situation, and that's why we put it out there to see what they thought, the contractors thought, but I'm recommending that we do rebid that information. We did do some exploratory digging out there a short while ago to see what we could find, to see if we could handle that in-house, and I'm suggesting that we would not utilize those items, that we stick with the base bid.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
And then I have a wondering, so the sentence, the two projects were combined into one bid to try to solicit better numbers. So the more that you ask for, the cheaper things may be?
Yeah, it's an economy of scale.
Okay. Because I don't remember if it was under you or the previous manager that we were talking as a board about wanting to diversify or give more opportunities to entities that may not have as much resources or scale, but that they could still participate in, you know, this bidding process. And so I get that that would probably make things more expensive, yet I also want to think about smaller businesses being able to participate.
Actually, a conversation Michelle and I had on Monday was next year trying to split them into smaller projects and bid them out separately, just for that very reason, because there are contractors in the county that aren't capable of handling a larger project like this that could handle the smaller project. So, and also we're finding as we've been getting our bids out earlier in the year, we're getting incredible prices.
Okay.
So we've tried to move the bidding schedule back so that we're doing this more in the winter or early spring timeframe, so that then contractors have work lined up.
All right.
Win-win, yeah, that's great.
Well, we're thinking of your smaller contractors, small
Yes.
business owners, so we will do what we can for you. All right, so there's a motion on the floor that's been seconded. Any additional questions or comments? All right, all of those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any nays? Any abstentions? Motion passes. All right, moving on to item B, Resolution 2025-07, confirming a portion of Berkshire Drive has been maintained by Patton.
So we discovered earlier this year, because Berkshire Drive is actually being microsurfaced by Ferguson Township, and they reached out and said, hey, a portion of it's in Patton, do you want to also add that on? And we said yes, and then we discovered that Berkshire was never actually dedicated to the township. And the plan for that development was actually approved by the Board of Supervisors in 1969, and Ferguson Township accepted their section of Berkshire in 1979. So we talked with our PennDOT representative, Matt Knepp, and he indicated that the second-class township code allows for us to basically accept that road now because we've owned, it's been open for public use, and we've owned and maintained it for, we've maintained it for more than 21 years. So our solicitor put together a resolution, and once you approve this, we can add it onto our road docket, so that's officially a member of the Patton Township Road Network.
So we've been taking care of something that's not technically ours.
Yeah, it was an administrative error from 1979, when I was 5.
Did you just do that, Matt?
I mean, okay. All right, I'll take a motion.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
questions, comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Any abstentions? Motion passes. Moving on, engineering, planning, and zoning. Mount Nittany Health temporary use permit request.
So Mount Nittany Health submitted a request for a temporary use permit to hold their community day event for their employees only at their facility up on Greenview Drive. The event will take place on Tuesday, May 13th from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. They're going to have 5 tents. A porta potty will be provided for the food trucks. They're going to have 5 food trucks. Employees will use the restrooms inside. The Planning Commission reviewed the temporary use permit, and they recommend approval of it.
I realize I didn't read the last resolution.
What?
I don't need to?
No,
Oh,
you're
thank
good.
God. This thing's like,
I thought you meant you didn't read it in general before the meeting.
oh, yeah, no, I read it before. Okay. Sweet. All right, motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Questions, comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Abstentions? Motion passes. MS4, MS13, MS4 stormwater presentation.
And that's Ms. Michelle.
Hey.
So I'd like to thank the board for this opportunity to speak with you for a few minutes tonight. We are an MS4 municipality in Patton Township, and we are required to make this status presentation to the board on a yearly basis. I did take this opportunity to modify this presentation a little bit because I felt that we had maybe been seeing the same presentation year after year, and that this would go, not that we won't cover what we need to, but I thought I would give you some information on what we're doing, what staff actually does in terms of this permit, and a very exciting stream stabilization project that we have coming up. I'd like to show you some,
That's so cool.
some pictures. So if you don't mind, we'll roll right into this because it's a lot. Keep going, Larry. There we go. So what is stormwater? And we've seen this before. We've talked about this before. This slide shows the natural water cycle, and it shows both a fairly rural area and an urbanized area. You know, stormwater is generated from precipitation, and then we have some very drastic differences from our more rural areas and our urban areas, where in our urban areas we tend to have stormwater that hits impervious surfaces, our roofs, our roadways, our parking lots, and then comes or shows itself as runoff versus infiltration into the ground. So we're trying to make conditions better with that runoff, both in terms of volume and runoff rates. And our center region is a little bit different than some of the other watersheds that you'll see in Pennsylvania. And this is a photo showing why. That's due to our limestone geology, our karst topography, which means that a lot of our stormwater runoff goes down into the ground. And you wouldn't expect that in an urban area. Now, you know, I realize we're not maybe as urban as New York City or Philadelphia, but we still are an urban area according to the census data. And we have very many opportunities. For example, the Big Hollow Run, which is the stream or conveys the water that you would see coming off Douglas Drive down in the dip at Hobacre Industrial Drive. That is a stream that a lot of our stormwater in the township discharges to, but never, that water doesn't go anywhere. Eventually it leaves through the bottom of the stream, infiltrates into the ground, and then goes into our regional groundwater. So although we have a high rate of urbanization and impervious area here, a lot of our water does go into the groundwater, and in some ways that makes it very much more important to be making sure that we don't have things in that groundwater that shouldn't be. You know, we all see the PFAS situation on the news and different things like that, so that's why it's very important to keep things out of our groundwater and out of our regional groundwater. And then I will reiterate this point that we always make, that stormwater does not go to a sewage treatment plant. And that's a common misconception, that stormwater is treated, or if it goes into the inlets, it gets treated somewhere, and it certainly, at least here in Patton Township, does not. That gets eventually discharged to a stream, to a surface water, and much of it does find its way into our groundwater from those streams, or closed depressions, sinkholes, those types of things. So this is the meat and bones of this. What is an MS4 permit? And MS4 stands for Municipal Separate Storm Sewer System, and it targets runoff from urbanized areas, again identified in the census, and those areas change every time there's a census. We may add some area, we may lose some area. With that, generally the trend here has been that we add some new areas, some new municipalities over time. But every year we have a series of activities that we must do, requirements that we must meet, and every year we must submit an annual report, which is a couple inches thick when we're all done with it, telling the state, the DEP, what we've done in the year. And we do work with other MS4 partners in the area, College, Harris, Ferguson, and us, Patton Township, plus part of Benner Township, the university, and the borough. And we work together collectively, and that is a blessing for us because we're able to share educational activities and share expenses with that. For example, we typically run an ad in the Center Daily Times on a yearly basis, and we're able to combine and run one ad to reach that target audience versus running 6 ads from all of the universities, running the same ad 6 times. So this is a little overview of our stormwater management program. It's actually all of the individual permit holders, stormwater management program all across the Commonwealth, and it shows that we have 6 MCMs, minimum control measures. I won't read them all, but I will go through them and just tell you a little bit about what we do with these. First is public education and outreach. We do all sorts of things, from having tables at Earth Day. One of the events I'll be helping with in May is the Rain Barrel Workshop at Clearwater Conservancy, and we'll give an abbreviated, non-technical version of this presentation at that meeting. Tables at Earth Day, ads in newspapers, ads in newsletters, the Patton Pulse. So we have an education program, an outreach program with that. Public involvement and participation, which would be control measure 2. That is a 2-faceted activity for us. We seek public involvement, so come on out and build your rain barrel, put that in your house, learn why that's important, come out and stencil storm drains with us, those types of things, but also public involvement in terms of, if you recall last year when we did the ordinance, we had stormwater changes to the ordinance, and we made a change to our pollutant reduction plan, our PRP, and we seek public involvement through that. So public advertisement in the newspaper to say, hey residents, we're changing this, what do you think about this? Here's your opportunity to come in and make public comment. Here's a hearing that we're having, come in and make public comment, and that's posted on the website. Sophie is great to work with on social media to help us get that word out. You'll see sometimes little postings that say, hey, we've submitted our permit report for this. We've submitted our report for the year. If you're interested, come on in and see this. Or if you can't make it in there, let us know. We'll get that to you some way, residents, so you can look at this and you can comment if you have changes. Number 3 is illicit discharge detection and elimination. We're looking for things that should not be discharged to the stormwater. That's an ongoing thing. Ryan Confer from our office is out usually keeping an eye on those. We were required to monitor our outfalls and dry weather to make sure there's not something that's coming out that shouldn't be. And then, we're always working with the road crew or whoever, Nicole Harder, the zoning officer, myself, who are out looking for stuff to say, hey, that shouldn't be there, that shouldn't be going on. And then we have a protocol on what to do when we see something that shouldn't be there. Construction site runoff control, we work very much with the Conservation District, who has our delegated authority for plan reviews, E&S controls, and inspections, but we work closely hand in hand with them. If we see something wrong, hey, Conservation District, can you help us with this? Hey, developer, can you help us? We work a lot with education with that too, handing out brochures with permits, looking at permit requirements so that the developers, people who are doing development, are able to keep sediment out of our waterways and know what they should be doing. Post-construction stormwater management, we're familiar with that because we have our own stormwater management ordinance that governs how things should be built, discharge rates, infiltration rates, recharge rates, and that is the ordinance that we updated in September of last year to be in compliance with DEP's requirements for that ordinance. And finally, pollution prevention, good housekeeping. Those are activities that we do here. Something that comes to mind quickly for that would be the salt shed. One of the largest control measures, or one of the easiest ways that we can help prevent pollution, is to have a salt shed. So that the salt is stored inside the building. It's not getting rained on, it's not getting snowed on, it's not washing that salt into the stormwater system. And then one thing that our roadmaster, our road superintendent and I speak to all the time is if you're loading salt, it's snowing, it's sleeting, sometimes a little bit gets on the ground, but get out of the truck, get your shovel, get it cleaned up, and keep it off the parking lot so it doesn't have an opportunity to wash somewhere. Pollution prevention goes hand in hand with that, and making sure our salt application rates are appropriate for what's going on. We're not over salting. We're taking care of things like that. So we're doing things behind the scenes all the time, I think, that maybe doesn't get publicized or that residents aren't aware of, but we are always trying to comply with these requirements. So this is what we do in the public works operation. These are our areas of influence. Management, material storage, like we just talked about, spill prevention. It's much easier to prevent a spill of something, an oil, a gasoline, than it is to clean it up. If we clean it up, or if we spill it, it's got to get cleaned up and taken care of appropriately. Construction, erosion, and sediment controls. If we're out working on the streets, we're digging something, we have earth disturbance, we don't want to see any type of sediment released from the municipal operations or our projects. Our cleanup and wash down, we have a wash bay. Our stormwater wash water is controlled for us, and then I always ask the road crew to keep an eye on these illicit discharges because they're out and about all the time looking at things. They're in the neighborhood. Things we see sometimes very odd, unusual things like water softener discharge. You wouldn't think that someone would discharge that to the surface, to your backyard versus in the storm drain, something like that, but our guys are the first eyes and ears to see that. Also our first responders and our police department as well. If you see something, please tell us. So we do have illicit discharges. Occasionally, we are mandated to report those, to address them, and a lot of that language is provided by the state. Basically, the law says we should not allow or cause to allow an illicit discharge to occur, and sometimes we get the question, what's an illicit discharge? And I say, well, it's much easier to tell you what a non-illicit discharge is, and that's what's on the next slide for us here. They are things like discharges or flows from firefighting activities, irrigation water, your lawn sprinklers, usually your sump pump, the air conditioning condensate, those types of things on this list are non-illicit discharges. But I will say that every time DEP puts out new guidance or a new model ordinance, it changes, or it seems to change, so it's a moving target, and we will speak we will speak to that in a minute. Non-illicit discharges, some additional information. We are allowed to make some determinations through our permit as a municipality to say, hey, this isn't supposed to be a harmful discharge, but it is. It's causing problems, it's causing contamination, and there's some sections of the law here that allow us to address that should we happen to see it. And then we also talk a little bit here, or we're governed by these prohibited connections, and again, it talks about sewage, water, processed water, those types of things are not allowed to be discharged into our storm sewer system. Those are also, in addition to sewage, things like if you had some type of an industrial or manufacturing operation, those discharges, whether it's something from a process or whether it's something that sits outside, it's stormwater that comes in contact to, say, I don't know, stockpiled plastic pellets or something like that, that water must be run in through the storm sewer or the sanitary sewer system, not the storm sewer system. So these are just a few pictures of our operations. Again, our salt shed, which is a fantastic way to prevent discharges. These are some photos of illicit discharges. You can see one of the ways we tell is usually color. If you see something wrong, you know, we shouldn't see white discharges in our stormwater. We shouldn't see foam or bubbles or odors. When it's not raining, we should not see flows in our storm sewers. So that's a way that we can tell right away that there's something wrong. There's some type of illicit discharge. This is just an example of spill prevention. When we get a situation like this, we keep materials on hand to address this, and we push housekeeping, cleaning. You know, it's going to happen, accidents happen, clean it up. This is an example of an illicit discharge, and you can tell that there's something wrong, something off by the sheen in the water, and then that triggers our protocol to do that. Here is an example of our fuel tanks up at the shop behind us, and those fuel tanks are not only covered to keep the precipitation off them to prevent degradation of the tank, but also there's a spill containment barrier around there. If that tank leaked, it's inside of the block wall there and it doesn't spill and get into the groundwater system. Here's an example, and it's not one of our projects or one of our sites. I will give the guys credit there to say this is another area, but you know, things like this, situations like this, when we have earth disturbance, we need to make sure we have appropriate controls, because you can see the sediment sort of being dragged off or washed off of there. There are some times when it's difficult with that, but I always encourage them to say, hey, again, clean it up, get it taken care of.
Yeah, so I'm just wondering about that in particular when there's new developments going on. I know up in Grace Point right now, there's a lot of development there, and I see a lot of those types of mounds, and what feedback or how do you account for something like that?
So each of those developments, I'm going to use Grace Point as our example here to talk about it. If there's greater than an acre of earth disturbance, they have what I'm going to call an NPDES permit, a NIPDES permit for stormwater associated with construction activities, and that's one of the ways we partner or have a memo of understanding with the Center County Conservation District, and that plan mandates controls for them, things like compost filter stock. One of the things we see issues with, but is in that plan, is a 4-day stabilize requirement. So technically, if you have an area that is at grade or is not going to be redisturbed within 4 days, they're supposed to stabilize that, whether it's mulching in the winter, whether it's seeding and mulching in the growing season. I know that's a common one that gets pushed a lot here, but there is a permit for that. They have pre-planned controls that should be in place, and the Conservation District is to be inspecting all of that. If we are out as a staff level and we see something wrong, we call the Conservation District and say, hey, can you help us with this? There's a sediment discharge here. We think this isn't in compliance with the permit. And then at that point, the Conservation District, the DEP can step in, issue notices of violation, stop work, depending on the severity of it.
Okay. See something, say something.
Yes, basically. So this is another source of sediment that you might not think about. What you're looking at is an old corrugated metal pipe, like the ones we might see on North Oak Lane where the bottom's gone. The bottom has just rusted out of those pipes after 50 years. They're not designed to be in place. Once the bottom's gone, there's nothing protecting that earth underneath the bottom of the pipe. So it's almost hidden erosion and sedimentation, but it's there. It's washing away the earth underneath what was the bottom of that pipe. So that's why it's important to fix those. And then there is your see something, say something. muddy residue coming off the residential sites. That's absolutely what we don't want to see here. And then we would be either speaking, if we're on site with them, with the site manager, with the contractor, and talking with the conservation district to say, hey, that's not part of the plan. There are individual controls for each of these lots. You've got to do something about this. This is not a permissible situation. This is a grease trap scenario. You can see where the arrow shows the grease trap, and you can see where the low point in the pavement is approaching the inlet, where the grease is laying there. This is a hot, sunny spring day, and we knew that there shouldn't be water there. That wouldn't be water stain. There wouldn't be storm water. There was no precipitation. So what is that? And it turns out it was grease, and that was a situation then when we contact the property owner at the restaurant who had the grease trap problem and require them to get that grease trap addressed. That's an example. That's dumping of paint down in an inlet, which is an absolute no-no, and that's very easy to see in situations like that, the paint on the grate. And then once we find that, we've got to go out and figure out, hey, what happened, what's the extent of that, and try and address that. Cleanup and wash down is something that we do here. Again, cleaning up sediment. You're cleaning up your project, clean up your dirt, shovel it up, put it in a truck, take it away. Don't push it into the stormwater inlets or over the side of the head wall into the stream, and it's an educational process. With that, then adhere to whatever the manufacturer, whether it's soap, whether it's sediment, what does the law say about taking care of that. And we do, as a township, at the Department of Environmental Protection, have reporting requirements, mandatory timeframes for those depending on what they are. Obviously, clean sediment, clean earth is very different than some type of a hazardous or a corrosive chemical. But we keep detailed records of all of this. If anything was called in, what we did, any type of work order for stormwater, so we can report that to the department. This is just a brief section about violation of the Clean Water Act, and this is something that I hope I never have to sit at this table and talk to you about. If so, I'm not doing my job, and we've got some problems, but there are legislative requirements, law requirements about what we can and can't do. And now we're coming into the good stuff. So what's next for us at Patton Township? And we did submit, prior to the first of the year, a new permit approval. These permits, these MS4 permits, typically work in 5-year cycles. We had just completed a 5-year cycle. We'll be finishing at the end of June and closing out the reporting for this cycle. I don't know what's coming next, to be honest. They issued a draft general permit for us for guidance. I know over 50 people across the state submitted comments on that draft permit, and some of us had hundreds of comments at a clip. The reasons for that range from the fact that some of the language wasn't clear. Some of us felt some of the language in that was a violation of policies in the MPC, and that was going to be a big problem for us, for municipalities. There were changes on who had delegated authority to handle erosion and sediment control, which is a very large responsibility and would have a massive impact on us here in terms of staffing requirements if we needed to be running an E&S control program as well, who would be issuing permits. But there was also a change in management for stormwater that we would need to account for basically capturing stormwater runoff volume in all of our basins for the impervious area. Right now we work on basins or monitor basins after a certain time frame, and it was unclear. It seemed to be that we would be looking at all basins in the township, and you can imagine that's a massive effort to go back from the beginning of stormwater management. And they were asking, what is the contributing impervious area for that? How is it performing? And if we were collecting that data, modeling those basins, that's a massive work effort. And there was a lot of comment on the timeframes on what to do for that, and also the credits or what would be required to mitigate that. So I can't say for sure. I think we will have a very heavy lift, a very large stormwater workload coming at some point in the future. I just can't say what that is. I will say that we are in as good a shape as any municipality is. We've got a GIS database. We've got a lot of these areas mapped. And we are lucky here to have, or fortunate here to have, a county GIS system that we could map impervious areas fairly quickly, but it is expected to be a massive body of work with also some type of mitigation plan required for this. But we are also, in the happy news, working towards the implementation of our Meeks Lane Buffalo Run tributary project. And since we last spoke here, we have updated our pollutant reduction plan, our PRP. We did, as you'll recall, remove work on a basin that was shown in there, and that basin was determined to be a wetland. DEP said, no, we'd rather have the wetland than we would have you fix that. So we removed that from our pollutant reduction plan. And we also added, as did most of the MS4 partners, a layer of protection, a little bit of a stormwater warranty, if you will, that would allow us to participate in the Millbrook Marsh project and purchase credits through there if we were in big trouble. But we are not at this time in big trouble. We do have we've done invasive species control on the Meeks Lane site. We've worked with the landowner for the stormwater easement. I understand he does want to view the site and take a look, have a couple questions on where some of these structures will go, but we anticipate that in the next week or two, the 1st of May, and we are very much hoping to start this project the full time, or in its entirety, the first part of June. We've cleared some of the trees that were in our existing easement, our existing right-of-way. Minimal trees, only those ones that absolutely had to go, and we've put in our construction access. So we're sitting kind of waiting, but what are we doing with this project? What's going on? And this is a picture of a banked full flow channel. You can see a little low flow channel in there and then bank full. We're going to reestablish a bank full flow area on that tributary. Right now we've got a very deep, very narrow incised channel. That water can't go anywhere. It can't get out of the banks. It can't dissipate energy. We are very limited by Meeks Lane, by the topography on the left-hand side looking downstream. We don't have the space to put in a big, wide, broad floodplain like you might want to see, but we're going to do the best that we can with what we have there. This is a picture of the spillway of that basin. If you look towards the center of the photo, you can see that it's eroded. Water's running right out of that, and that wetland basin isn't maintaining the stormwater volumes that it should. So we're going to go ahead and repair that, put a clay key in there, and restore it to what it once was, so it's much more stable. And then if we look at this next slide, this is the discharge of it too. We're going to, instead of having a narrow 6-inch wide discharge from that basin, we will have a nice broad flat spillway as suggested by the department, a 10-foot spillway width. That'll spread out the flows, prevent them from being constricted to a small area, which gives them a lot of erosive potential. This is an area of the stream. You can see where the stream has undercut, where the tops of the roots used to be on the ground, and now we're seeing these more vertical roots where the stream bed has dropped 3 or 4 feet. At this time, we are very much constrained by the street above, the culvert above, and some cement channel features as we get down towards the bottom of this reach towards the old farmstead. So we're going to try and stabilize this as it sits. We are not attempting to restore this as it was at the beginning of time before Meeks Lane was in there and all of the farmstead activities, the street activities, but we're trying to make this stable so it no longer is eroding. As the bottom erodes, then the sides cave in, and we're trying to stop that. So we'll be placing rock structures and some other methods to do that. If we look at this, you can see where the banks are severely eroded on that left bank, but also on the right bank, closer to the Meeks Lane, and we'll be regrading, putting that floodplain in the left area of the photo. This is just a last picture of how incised this is, how incised the channel is, and how much erosion we have. And that's, I believe, more from the bottom dropping out, as I said, and then the sides collapsing versus velocities on the sides. So these last photos are some pictures of what we'll be doing. These are rock vein structures, and I need you to keep in mind that these standard details, these pictures are for 20-foot, 30-foot wide streams. We're dealing with 3 feet, 4 feet sometimes, so the scale of this is going to be much less, but this is the idea of it, to place these rock vein type structures that will direct the flow away from the sides of the bank and keep it into the middle of the channel. The water wants to cross these structures on a perpendicular basis, so they stick out into the stream. They'll stick out upstream, pointing towards me. The water will be naturally directed into the center of the channel and keep it there. We're using some, I don't want you to think riprap rock, the art classes of rock, the round shot rock out of the quarry. We won't be using that. We're using some specially selected sandstone material, non-poritic, very inert sandstone material that will be rectangular, so we don't have to do a tremendous amount of excavation with that, and it looks like what the natural bed material would be out there.
Perenic, inert,
I'm sorry?
can you define those terms? Perenic, inert?
Non-periodic, so we don't have the acid rock situation like we did at Skytop, just making sure that that rock came from materials that don't bear pyrite, that don't have the ability or the situation to generate those iron sulfides and the different things that would create that acid rock drainage. And inert is a relative term. I'm sorry if that created some confusion on that, but I didn't want to be using a lot of the limestone materials that we would put in here, and then we would tend to dissolve in the pH of the stream, and then 10 years later, we're back needing to do this again because our stream stabilization structures dissolved and washed downstream. I mean, great for the water chemistry, raises the pH, but not great for our Patton Township budget if our rocks dissolve and melt away.
Thank you.
So here's another picture of what this will look like, but again, I need you to think of this horseshoe-shaped structure on a much smaller scale, much smaller rock, but if you see how it's driving or dragging the water in towards the center of the stream channel, looks very natural, looks very nice, like it always had been there. These are some rock grade control structures. That's what we'll be placing, some flat rectangular rocks on the bottom of the stream channel, so the water kind of steps down in a natural step pool configuration, holds the bottom in place without needing to armor the whole length of that stream. You know, we wouldn't be permitted by DEP to put riprap, some of the more harder engineering measures that you might think that you would see, you know, and if that were a stormwater channel, we would throw geotextile in it, we would throw rock over it. We're not permitted to do that. So we're using this sort of natural but most cost-effective situation because we don't need to pay for rock over all of it. We're just placing these rocks in selected areas. And if you have to or happen to drive past there, you can see I've got it flagged with different call-outs on there to say this is what we're doing here, this is what we're doing there. And it will be almost a trial and error process for this. I know it's hard to think about from an engineering standpoint, maybe from a management standpoint, but we go in and we place some of these on the downstream end of the structure, and then we wait. And we wait till it rains, and we see how it responds, how it performs. And it's not unheard of. It's not something to worry or panic or get upset over, but we've got to see what it does when it rains, when we have high flows, when we really stress it, and sometimes we go back out and we make adjustments. It's the nature of it. So if you see us out there working a couple times, don't be alarmed with that. Finally, these are some root wads. If we dig out any roots, a lot of times we push them back into the bank like that. That provides some armament, natural armament for the bank. We weight those down with rock, as you can see in the picture. This is some jute mat. This is specially selected. You'll see that on the banks after they're regraded. That's intended to temporarily hold that bank in place until we can get sufficient vegetation in there. You know, it's a double-edged sword because we need there to be low flows, we need it to be dry, but that's also not the best time of year to establish vegetation. So you will see it's seeded, this biodegradable jute mat placed down in here. If we should have vegetation and not need this mat, if this mat is causing problems a year or two down the road, we go out with a pair of nippers and we cut it off and we pull it out of there, and we're happy because it's done its job. But we will seed it with a temporary seeding mixture in the fall when it's more appropriate. We have a very lovely native stream riparian mix from Ernst Conservation Seeds spec'd for this, so we're excited about that. And then the last slide that we'll see today is our live stake planting, which will happen over the winter months. And that's kind of a touch-up or the final icing on the cake out there. These are basically small sections of native tree species that'll get pushed into the bank, and they will look awful for a while. They'll look awful for a year or two because they'll be growing roots, they won't get leaves on them, so they'll look awful for a long time, and then suddenly they'll start showing leaves, and then it'll be a very nice wooded stream, stabilized area, and those roots will hold the stream bank in place. So that's our excitement, our project, and that's a little bit about what we do for the MS4 program here.
Comments?
The master gardeners have a saying about plants when you first put them in the ground, that the first year they sleep, the next year they creep, and then the third year they leap. Most people don't know that. I didn't know that until I was a master gardener, but What brought on the need for all of this restoration? Is it just, it's been gathering over time, or is it the change in the rainfall pattern, which we are seeing more of with climate
So,
change? Yeah.
Betsy, we have a pollutant reduction plan, and part of that comes from being in the Chesapeake Bay watershed with the pollutant reductions required for that. Some of the receiving streams have TMDLs, or total maximum daily loads for pollutants, and all of the MS4 partners in the center region developed this pollutant reduction plan, and that plan said that we as Patton Township are on the hook for the reduction of so many pounds of sediment.
Cool.
And assuming, they made some technical assumptions that that pound of sediment also removes so much nitrogen, so much phosphorus, and that was our goal, is to reduce the nitrogen and the phosphorus, and they said we would achieve that by removing the sediment. So you'll see some similar projects like the Duck Pond project that went on Millbrook Marsh. Those were all sediment reduction projects from various municipalities. We had a set trigger of footage or lineal feet that we had to achieve for restoration, and this Meeks Lane project happened to meet some internal criteria of, number one, getting us enough credits, sediment removal credits, but also easily accessible, cooperative landowner, relatively inexpensive project. So we could have done a project in many different locations. This just seemed to be a best and a significant one with significant sediment loss.
Thank you for the signage. I haven't seen it, but I'm going to, I guess I haven't been down that road recently. Look for it. It's too bad there aren't any pull-off areas or opportunities for the public to learn from this.
And we've tried, just as an aside or an FYI, we did reach out via mail to adjacent landowners so they knew what was going on, what they would expect, and we did include that gentle warning that it's going to look worse with some of the invasive species control and the tree removal, but please be patient with us. In a number of years it'll look great, it just will look worse before it gets better.
Yeah. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Supervisor Robb?
Michelle, I just have a question on, since we've had these two big major windstorms that's come through with some damaging, has it affected any of your plans, or have you seen any problems that gave you a setback because of that?
Are you asking Supervisor Rubb in general or for this particular project?
In general.
Okay, for this project, I just want to say for the record, we have kept a lot of these plantings away from Meeks Lane, and there are some electric facilities or fiber optic facilities in the ground, but overhead electric in that area, that we've very carefully designed this to keep the plantings on the far side, the left side of Meeks Lane, so we don't see any type of shrubbery or tree falling impacts on this project. We have seen, and Amy can speak to this as well, we've seen a lot of trees come down. You know, it's very widely publicized what went on in tough trees and things like that. And I guess the one thing that keeps coming to mind to me, the point is that we've got to keep our trees cut back off the roadways, especially the dead, dying material. You know, I know it's extremely unpopular in some cases, and that's unfortunate. We don't want to lose tree coverage that we don't need to lose, and I would say never, you know, certainly don't remove things that we don't need to, but we've got to just keep ahead of the dead and dying vegetation for us. And, you know, I know it's hard to think too, because we balance so many things, environmental concerns, engineering concerns, but a lot of times removing some of that canopy directly above the roadway helps us from a pavement preservation standpoint as well, both a public safety and a pavement preservation standpoint. So we've just, you know, we've got aging trees and older neighborhoods, and we've got to keep abreast of that.
Thank you.
All right, seeing nothing else, thank you so much. All right, moving on to Atherton Street Green Light Go Traffic Signal Installation Project.
So as the board may remember, the township received $684,138 in funding from PennDOT to complete a regional signal coordination project along Atherton Street. And that project ran from Patton Township through to Harris Township and was completed in fall of 2023. We also had, because the project came in so far under budget, we had additional funds that we used to purchase signal equipment for targeted intersections throughout the corridor last summer. We still have $175,000 left in the project to spend, so we're using that for the installation of the equipment that we purchased last year. So we solicited bids for the work and opened that on April 18th. We received one bid from Kaharchik Construction in the amount of $177,077.90. And Michelle is recommending that you award the Atherton Street Green Light Go traffic signal installation project to Kaharchik Construction for $177,077.90.
I'll take a motion as listed in the agenda.
So moved.
Second,
I'll second.
comments, questions? So we would be footing approximately 2,000.
Yes. Technically, so there's work in Harris and work in College Township as part of this. It technically could go back and bill them, but the majority of the work is in Patton Township, so I think in this case, Patton Township will just pay the extra $2,000 and have the work done. Unless you're looking at me like I should send a bill to College and Harris, I'll do whatever.
I mean, the wondering I would have is like what that number would actually be.
Yeah, I can look at it, but like Michelle knows, the majority of those intersections are on our side of Atherton Street. I think College has one intersection, and Harris might have two.
Okay. I know it seems petty, but. And so if someone, okay, never mind. So whatever when a bid comes in and it's like, all right, lowest bid and we accept that, we couldn't then say, we're giving you won the bid, but we need to shave a few $1,000s off because, you know, it's a little over our budget.
No. Generally, no. So, and Kaharchik does all of our traffic signal work now, so they know the intersections that we're talking about, and they know the area very well. So I think in this case, this is an instance where it's worth the extra $2,000 because they'll get the work done, and we don't have to question how it'll be done.
Okay. All right. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. All right, moving on to administration. Creation of an assistant township manager position.
So the operating budget includes the hiring of a public works director. If you remember, Ken Soder retired in December, so that position has been vacant since December. We have it funded in June. So after his retirement, I stepped in and assumed the interim public works director position, which gave me a really great opportunity to understand how that side of the building operates. And when I say that side of the building, I mean the engineering, planning, and zoning side, but also the road crew side. Because Glenn is going to be retiring in September, and we have to replace Glenn. So I spent a lot of time getting to know the road crew. I meet with them every Monday. We've also been having department meetings every other week with the engineering, planning, zoning side to get to know how everything's working, make sure that things are functioning, what we need to get done. So I was trying to come up with a path forward for the departments, and I've been thinking about this for quite a few months, and I've come to a couple of conclusions. I did talk with Michelle at the beginning of the year and said, one, do you want to be the public works director? And Michelle politely declined. And two, do we need a second PE in-house? Like, are we at the point where we have so much work that we need to have two PEs? Because back many years ago, our public works director, we had one department, it was the public works department, it wasn't split into two. The public works director that was here, they had an engineering degree, and then we also had an assistant engineer, which Michelle was one of the assistant engineers back in the day. So Michelle agreed that we don't need another PE in-house. If we have another project that comes in, we can also go out to a firm and get a firm to come in, and we can solicit and get help that way. So when I was thinking again then about the public works director position, I was also thinking about the fact that the public works director that we had, when I talked to the road crew, they didn't see him very much because their direct interaction and their direction of work comes from the road superintendent. So to that side of the department, the road superintendent is the key position. And looking at that road superintendent position and looking at the makeup of our road crew, I want to promote someone internally from the road crew to be the road superintendent. And I'm working on a plan to give some training to the folks that are interested in that position and come up with a metric to help measure who we want to put into that position. So that's the second piece of this, which will happen later. I also realized that when we split the Public Works and the Engineering, Planning, and Zoning Department, that was done for like a very specific reason. That reason doesn't exist anymore. And I temporarily reunited the departments, and in talking to everyone, and I've talked with everyone on that side of the building so they know what I'm interested in doing, but in talking with them, I said I want it to just be a Public Works department again, and they all agreed that with the correct staffing, that's the correct choice moving forward, and that makes it easier to manage. College Township has it split, and College Township has two department heads that work really well together, but if you don't have that situation, it makes it very cumbersome, and so I want to have one person. So then I'm talking with my colleagues across the state, and I have a friend who used to be a public works director in Cranberry Township, Butler County, and he's now a municipal consultant. Talking with him, public works directors are really hard to find because they're typically PEs, and PEs are very hard to find. So I was thinking about how I wanted to take on this position and what I wanted to do with it, because as much as I've enjoyed being the interim public works director, I don't have time to be the interim public works director. And the road crew asked me, they're like, aren't you just gonna stay? And I'm like, look, I love you all, but I cannot just keep on keeping on. So I talked with my friend, my colleague, and he suggested that we think about an assistant township manager for public works. And that would give us the opportunity to look for somebody that has a broader skill set. And in making that decision and writing the job description, then everything happened with CRPA this week. And I think what we're gonna see in speaking with Ben, some of his plan in the short term is that local planning has to go away because he doesn't have a way to fund it or to staff it.
Can you remind people of what happened?
Yeah, for the public, but the
Can
CRPA.
you remind people of what happened?
Yeah, Mr. Tilka is leaving CRPA to pursue another career opportunity outside the area. So he's leaving May 16th. And then we hired the local planner to be our Public Works Administrative Assistant. So in talking with Ben, and Ben said, I think that local planning is probably gonna have to go away. And I will tell you that Harris and Patton were the last two left in the program. I met with the Harris Township manager literally hours before we found out about Mr. Tilka taking this other position. And we had talked about maybe we need to get on like a 2-year or 3-year plan to make local planning sunset because there's only 2 of us left and it's becoming cumbersome and hard to staff. So knowing what's going on and seeing sort of what's coming, we can actually use this assistant township manager for public works as an opportunity to have somebody in-house who can look at plans, because we can look for somebody who has a planning background. And it's kind of a unicorn, I know, what we're looking for, but I'm confident that we will find the right person who will fit. And I'm also very big on, I don't just want to hire somebody to have a warm body in place, right? I don't just want to be like, oh, we just need a person. So, and I've told the folks on that side of the building, I'd like to involve them as well in the hiring process, because we have folks over there who've been here for 20 plus years and who really know the township and know the township's needs. So I want to make sure that we're putting the right person in there. And Larry has the job description or the organizational chart that I put together, because I know there was some concern about how this person fits into our leadership team. Just because they're getting the title assistant manager does not make them the direct number 2 under me. We have a very good thing going with our department head structure with Larry and with Tyler. So I want folks to understand that that person is gonna slide in to that leadership structure and be on the same level as Larry and Tyler. And they all have very specific things, and I mapped it out for you, that they oversee. Tyler has way more things under the police department. I just didn't have room for all of them. But he has the police department, Larry has the admin and finance side of the building, and this person will have Public Works, which includes the road superintendent, and then he will help, this person, not he, they will help manage the road crew with the road superintendent, so they'll work together on that.
So just out of curiosity, I hope it's okay if I jump in. So why is it you then wouldn't just title this person, this job, manager for public works?
Because it's hard, so I wanted to do assistant township manager for public works because for whatever reason in the local government sector, hiring an assistant manager, it's a title thing and it's easier to find people because they want that particular position. Also, you're gonna be looking for someone who ultimately maybe wants to be a manager someday and they could come here and cut their teeth and learn. And then if I retire, they could take my position or go on somewhere else.
And I guess to that point, and I know I had voiced some wonderings about just the nature of the title and what that means from an organizational perspective. I know in my industry, where I work, we have assistant directors we have a director and then assistant directors. And so I agree with, this pursuit right now and this title change and responsibilities and the incentive of having that label of assistant township manager. I'm wondering, could that not, though, be something we apply to the other director positions and name changed in that way?
Yeah, you certainly could do that. I mean, obviously, we wouldn't change Tyler to the assistant manager for
Yeah.
police because Tyler's a police chief. But we could certainly change Larry, if you wanted, to the assistant manager for finance and administration. It's completely up to you at that point. Larry and I were talking about that today. Or you could wait and say, if Larry wants to keep, if he really likes being the director of finance and administration, you can say that when Larry ever leaves and we have to put the smoke up looking for a new person to replace him, we could change that title to assistant manager for finance and administration.
Which might make it easier for you to hire.
Right, it might, and it's
As
funny,
you
the
find it
positions
now.
that are hard to hire in local government right now are public works directors and finance directors. That's why you gotta hang on to them for dear life if you have them.
Yeah, I guess
have no plans.
for me, it just seems,
We'll make sure.
because in part, this feels like semantics. But especially if there's still uniformity amongst, these positions that we have listed here, it seems right that, at least for me, that semantically,
Sure.
they would sort of like be labeled the same. And so, obviously, Larry, you and Amy can talk about that. My preference, though, would be outside of the police chief, if we have the director positions that are at the same sort of like level, it makes sense to have that uniformity with the title change, especially if it can give a boost to Vita or resume if they seek to go somewhere else, so.
Correct. For me personally, I've outgrown, for bringing somebody in for this position, that assistant township manager will look very good for them. For me, I've long past that the title doesn't matter to me. It's the function of what I do, and it's the way I'm treated and appreciated. It's much more important to me than what my title is. I told her, you can just call me senior accountant for all I care, as long as I still have the same function and I'm still appreciated. But I do understand what you're saying, whereas if we want to keep it consistent, changing my title doesn't change my function, doesn't change what I do every day. And I will still be probably the person that most of the people that come in, and when Amy's not here, immediately come to me anyways, because that they're used to coming to me, so that still happens even now. So whatever the board would like to do, I'm open.
Well, I'm wondering if the board agrees or has clarity on what I'm trying to say. And if, like, the ease at which we're able to make that change, if it's easy, then my preference would be like, just let's make it happen sooner rather than later. But
To add assistant manager, you're saying?
yeah, to add that uniformity amongst our directors, to have them assistant managers.
I did ask if I had a change in my title, would that come with a 50% increase?
No. The answer to that was no. I wasn't sick enough to give him that yesterday.
I tried when she was dotted out yesterday on steroids, but she
Yeah.
said no.
I
She
said
wasn't-
no.
She wasn't that far gone.
Because then Tyler would want a 50% raise.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I threw a question, wondering out there.
I had no, it's easy enough to do, it's fine.
It's also a public perception. I remember when Doug was here and he was anticipating his retirement, and he would alternate the,
Yeah,
Director.
it was a
Deputy,
it was a
director.
deputy township
Yeah.
manager position.
Yeah.
Tyler and I still do technically alternate
Yeah.
that position.
And I think it's good, just good preparedness. Good for backup, God forbid that we ever need it, but you would have those skills if in an emergency you need to take over something. Yeah. And I think the public perceives the police chief, the police office as separate anyway. That's very concrete for most people. The other less so, but structurally, it might make sense to them, more sense to see assistant township manager, and one is with public works, one's finance, so
Yeah,
that's what I'm thinking.
I can understand that.
More
That makes
perception.
sense.
Yeah, I'm fine, whatever you
Yeah,
want to do.
I'm fine with
We
it.
have to change, the manager's ordinance has the deputy township manager in it, so we have to change that nomenclature to be the assistant township manager. So we're making the change anyway, so we can change Larry's title. That's not difficult to do.
Call it assistant managers and not limit the number,
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And that way you could have one or you could have two.
Mhm. In my organization, we have 6, I think in mine, assistant managers, directors. But anyway. So does the board agree with that? If we're making one change?
Sure.
Make it all? Okay. Any comments, questions about just the creation of this position? Does it make sense?
Tell me who the current PE, PE stands for
A professional engineer.
professional engineer.
And that's
So-
Michelle.
But are you on staff now, or what's?
She's our consulting engineer. She's here, are you 30 hours a week now? Yeah, she's here 30 hours a
Ah,
week.
So you're here, you're actually in the
Yeah.
building.
Yep.
You know what, I remember we've talked about that before, and I just never had a clear picture of
Yeah.
that. Okay.
Yeah, she's phenomenal and
We know that,
don't want her to leave.
yeah, but it was more the physical presence, and I think that's important because the project manager certainly uses engineering a lot, and it's important to have that ready
Yes.
conversation, I would think.
Betsy, it did start as a Monday, Wednesday, Thursday kind of thing, and it's evolved to pretty much 5 days a week, depending on need.
And that probably, not to get personal, but that must work with are you stepping back into this role from you were PE initially and then took some time off and then, yeah.
Yeah.
So that works on many levels for you.
It did.
works for us. That's great. It's great when that happens. Yeah. And when those are taken into account.
Yep.
Right.
Any other comments from board members?
I just have a question. So we're losing Glenn going on retirement, right?
Yep.
Who is the other engineer except Michelle? That's it?
So we don't have another engineer on staff. If we need to bring someone in, we can actually go to an outside firm. And actually, Susan Wheeler in her job uses a bunch of different outside firms to complete her work, her projects.
So what is Ryan Converse?
He's the engineering technician.
So he's not a,
He's not a PE, no.
okay. So he just has some engineering background.
And he helps Michelle with the inspections and things on the
Gotcha.
stormwater program, and
Okay.
he does all her GIS mapping.
Okay. Cool. Oh, and I'm curious, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Guys, the internal hire for the road superintendent, so you know the road crew?
Yes.
Sounds like. So can you talk about the characteristics that you're inspired by in these
So,
people?
it's interesting that you bring that up. I was just talking to my colleague today about kind of what we want to do to help evaluate who we want to hire, or who we want to promote. So we have 3 road crew leaders. And so I've been asking them, because Glenn is, he's going to retire the middle of September. So I've been asking Glenn to work a little more closely with them in terms of letting them take some ownership of some things that are going on. The Public Works Facility Strategic Plan that we're doing, they've been in all those meetings with me, and they've been participating. I had 2 of them at the open house. I did that strategically as well, so that I can evaluate how they're doing in various parts of the role. And then when I was talking to my friend today, he said, what's the most important part of the job? Is it technical? Like, rate all of that. And I said, for me, the technical is 60% of the job, the administrative is 20% of the job, and then the personnel and supervisory management is another 20% of the job. And that's where I want to give them the skills so they get the training that they need, so they know how to run and manage the department. Because they all have the technical skills. I don't have any qualms about their technical abilities, but I want to make sure, and I can teach anybody the administrative side of things and how we do things, but I want to make sure they have the soft skills and the right soft skills to move that department forward. Also, we have a model that's really top-down right now. It's really Glenn, and then speaks to the crew leaders. They run the various crews during the day. But we have people on the road crew, and this has been the neatest thing about spending time with them, is that I've really gotten to know them as people. And we have one gentleman who, during his evaluation, said to me, I really like trees, and I want to learn how to trim trees. And that's something that's a huge help to the township. And we have other people that are really interested in pesticide applications and in herbicides and in landscaping. So trying to find a spot for everybody within that department, so we're rowing the boat in the same direction, but we all have a role within the department. So that's why I'm trying to be very intentional with what I'm doing with them and making sure that we're building up the team atmosphere, which hasn't always existed up there, and that we're also making sure that we're putting the right people in the right spots.
Great, that's cool. Yeah, arborist training, I've known it, we deal with tree cutters a lot. I always have, and it really is really important to get somebody with that arborist and how they cut the limbs.
Yep.
That, yeah, and drilled into me.
So how many people would a supervisor have under them?
On like the road superintendent?
Yeah.
So there's 12 total in that department. And then he has the 3 crew leaders.
Okay,
So
3 crew leaders, and each crew leader then has,
They have usually 2 to 3 guys under them, and they rotate out the people on their crews. But like, for example, we'll go out and we'll be doing brush collection, like monthly brush collection. So one crew leader will take out the crew to do the brush collection. Then another crew might be over working on pipe. Another crew might be over doing crack sealing. Or sometimes they all merge together because we have to do certain things. During snow, we split up into shifts. We're not running the same crew because they have CDL licenses and we really can't. So we split up into shifts and they rotate who's in charge on the weekends and the evenings. And then I had a list of that all winter and the police had a list of that. And then they knew if something happened, they would call.
Cool.
So really, but the work cycle comes from Glenn. Glenn goes in and one of the things we do Mondays at our meetings is Glenn sits down and says, okay, these are the things that we need done, or the signal inspection is done, is this done, is this done? Who's out this week? What crew needs help? Where do we put things? And so we're trying to get the crew leaders to take a little more ownership of that so that Glenn can start to take a step back and I can start to evaluate how they're doing. And I've been open with them about the whole process and kind of what I'm trying to do and how I'm trying to get them the training that they need. Because ultimately, I have to do right by the department. And ultimately, I don't want to set anybody up to fail. I want to set that person up to succeed.
well, yeah, again, I'm in favor of this job creation, and I liked how you've been pretty thoughtful about this position and how wide-ranging, it is. I think internal hires are, well, how should I say this? It gets tricky with internally hiring and competition amongst, coworkers, and so I'm hopeful that as these responsibilities are divvied out amongst some of like the crew leaders right now, obviously it's a kind of like a job interview, that there's a focus on ensuring that we're still a team and camaraderie and stuff like that. And so I think that's something to, just make sure that we're intentional about.
Well, and one of the things we're also going to do with the training that we're setting up for them, and Jason Daly is the name of my colleague, but Jason's proposing he'll come in and he wants to meet with Glenn, and then he wants to meet with the crew leaders and the road crew and learn everything they do. Because like I said, this is what he did in Cranberry Township. But then he's going to set up like a half-a-day training, and go through, so these are the responsibilities, these are the things that you'll be doing. And he said, then you might find that one of them doesn't want to do it and drops themselves out of contention. And then you might see that another one really rises to the top. But he proposed, and I love this idea because I'm a total local government geek, but he proposed that, like, as part of the interview process, and this interview process will involve Larry, and also if we have the assistant manager for Public Works in place, that person as well. But to ask them as part of that, like, what are the 5 things you would change about the department? Like, what are the 5 things you do well? So that we're, again, finding the person that's has a little bit of a vision for what they want the road crew to do.
Any additional comments, questions for Amy?
Yeah, no, just thank you for the time and energy, thought you've put into this.
And Amy, is there anything you were hopeful to hear from us about this?
If you could just do a motion so that we can create the assistant manager role, and then I can update the ordinance for you guys to act on at the May 14th meeting, that would be great.
I was going to do that. Anything additional you were hopeful
No,
to hear from us?
I'm
or-
happy to hear your support. I've spent, like I said, I've spent a couple of months really thinking about this and talking with the folks on the engineering, planning, zoning, public works side of the house. In particular, Susan Wheeler's been a good resource because Susan has been here for so long and she's been through a lot of different iterations of the department. So I'm really excited to move forward with this.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. I will entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second?
I'll second it.
All right, any discussions? I'm belaboring this point, but thinking through the name as well, again, getting back to like public perception, it could also be prohibitive too if people are like, oh, this is assistant manager of the township for this position. I don't want to actually be the second in line or something like that. So
Yep.
that's why, yeah, it's
Yep.
just important to very much clarify what this role is and the responsibilities. Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. Letter of support to Pennsylvania Mixed-Use Housing Development Pilot.
So the Patton Crossing developers submitted an application to the state's mixed-use housing development pilot program. This is a new program that the governor started back in December. The developer received notice last week that they were one of 104 applicants requesting funding and that they have been moved into the second round. As part of this round, they were asked to submit a letter of support from the township. They're proposing the creation of 135 residential units with 12 affordable units, and that would be between 65 and 85% of our area median income, and 15,300 square feet of ground floor retail space. And they gave us a copy of a sample letter, which I put in your agenda packet. If you're supportive of that, you can make a motion.
I will entertain a motion.
Yeah, I'm so moved on that. I'm very excited about that.
Second?
I'll second.
Comments? All right. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes.
I think Elliot dropped off.
No, he's still there.
Oh, he's still there? Okay. I didn't see him.
All right, yeah,
But it's
Supervisor Abrams, if there's comments and stuff, please chime in. I want to make sure we're not missing out. I guess technically too, don't we have to hear him for votes?
He was waving before when he was voting.
Okay. PSAT's annual conference resolutions?
So we looked at these at the last meeting, if there were any lingering questions or concerns, if you want to bring them up, since Supervisor Hashesky will be voting for the township on May the 6th.
Thank you so much.
Had that be written in, because we had this before, right?
Yes.
Yeah, we did. And,
Yep.
what item number, if I have, I'm going to have that up.
7C.
Oh, I do, yeah. The only question I had, was proposal 2524, that describes PSAT supporting legislation to amend the prevailing wage law.
Yep.
And I'm not that familiar with prevailing wage law, but my intuition says that I always question that. I should know the ins and outs on that
So-
and who's benefiting and who's not benefiting.
So right now, the prevailing wage law says that we have to pay prevailing wage on any projects that are over $25,000. So we have to get certified payrolls. The roof is a good example. That was just finished, it was $107,000, and we had to pay prevailing wage on it. So you have to get a determination of what the wage rates would be for that type of project, and then the contractor bids on those and pays those wage rates. The problem is that on smaller projects, it really adds to the cost of the project. So if you raise it to 60,000, you're encompassing your bigger projects, and then you adjust it thereafter. The 25 hasn't been raised in years, and I think that's the concern.
Okay.
Because the way the bidding and the quoting laws work in Pennsylvania, you almost don't even need to bid $25,000 anymore. We're right about at that threshold, because those laws move. So this is why this should take a jump, and then it should be tied to the consumer price index.
Okay. Okay. And that, okay. Thank you for that explanation. I'm okay with that.
Any other comments, concerns, directives?
I voiced a couple concerns earlier, but the manager suggested that we take one of them to PML.
Yep.
Might be more
The
efficient.
reassessment.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right,
All right.
thank
You
you.
got all you need?
Yeah.
Sweet. Appointment to the Center Region Parks and Recreation Authority.
Betsy, do you want to take this one?
Yes, yes. Let me just get that. Oh, where am I? So, we have a most excellent candidate. Let me just get that, okay. It's Clara Franklin. She is a part-time, she's a professor of rhetoric at Penn State and has had a lot of teaching experience. She's also very interested in local government, and I happened to ask her and the other applicant for the other ABC and the ABC process about that, and I was blown away by the answers of both of them, that they were aware of local government and realized that was a place to make a lot of action, impact. Claire Franklin was available for the, and I'm having a little bit of a hard time with the distinction between the RAC and which is the Recreation
Advisory Committee.
Advisory Committee, thank you. And then the Center Region Parks and Recreation Authority. But I'm getting a better understanding of that. Anyway, we are going to appoint her to the authority.
Yep.
And it will be her job then to relay information that Patton Township is doing on its parks and any recreation programs to the authority, and vice versa, of information from the authority, which largely controls the budget.
Yep.
Oversees that, to us and to the RAC. And I just, as Amy suggested, I think it will be a really challenging opportunity for her, because she'll be looking at a number of different committees, whereas she was one of the applicants for the library representative. Also, we chose another person who had maybe a little bit of entrepreneurial experience, which might have fit better at the library. So I think this is a really great fit. I've been texting her. I let her know today that we'd be approving it, and I could say that because there weren't any other applicants. She's very excited, so I was excited that she was excited. So I make a very strong recommendation for her. Any questions?
Would you like to make the motion?
Oh, yeah, I would love to make a motion that we appoint Clara Franklin to be the representative from Patton Township to the Center Region Parks and Recreation Authority.
To a term ending December 31st, 2027.
Oh, yeah, thank you. 2027, yeah, ending 2027.
Supervisor Rob seconded it.
Second.
Questions, comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. Shifting down to the consent agenda, I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as shown on the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
One second.
Questions, comments? All right, all those signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. Managers report.
I will just highlight two things. Number one, the CCATO Spring Convention is being held right here at your Patton Township meeting room on April 29th, and it would be lovely to see some of your lovely faces there. Valerie is the secretary treasurer of that organization, and I am the second vice president, so we would love to see your faces there. Just let me know so I can make sure you're registered and we have to pay. It's $10. And also you get $50 for attending. So if that sways the boat,
What, you get 50?
it's in the second-class township code, you get money for going to the county convention.
If I'd known that earlier. No, I'm just kidding.
How long I need to show up for?
So no, it starts at 5 o'clock, but actually you can come later because there'll be some vendors, and then the program, I think, is at 6. I have to make the program tomorrow.
Oh, that's right.
We're here.
Is that like cash, like a $50 bill, or?
No, it's like a
Check.
check. It's added to your pay. $50, I'm not handing out $50 bills. There will be snacks, too, from Wegmans.
It's from 5 to,
It's 5 to about 8, but I'll send you the details on the program, because like I said, you might not have to be here at 5.
Sign me up.
Tuesday, right? It's a Tuesday.
Tuesday, April 29th. You want to come?
Sign me up.
Yes. Anybody else?
the 29th or the
Yeah,
28th?
29th.
It's not about the money, it's about representation.
Yeah, there you go. Betsy, you're in?
Yeah, it's,
Look, I've made this sound so good. Everyone is checking their calendars.
it's more just bad timing for me, but I think I can do that.
Is CNET gonna be there?
No, CNET does not come to that.
Hey, y'all might get $50. Do we have any legal questions?
Amy, when do you need to know?
The end of this week?
Sounds good.
Okay.
Oh, it's the,
Okay, and then the only other thing I wanted to, well, two things. We're looking for a new ecologist. Joe Wilson is no longer able to provide services to us, and he did a lot. He did a stewardship plan. He's done a lot of monitoring work, and also the spongy moth egg mass counts. So if you know of someone that might be interested, if you could let Nicole or I know, that would be great. And then lastly, Local Government Week was a huge success, and I just want to shout out Sophie, Casey, Larry, Tyler, everybody that helped make that, the road crew that helped make that a big success. We had an open house, you guys were here for that. The ice cream truck, I think, helped draw people in. We will keep that for next year. Coffee with the manager, we had 8 people show up, so that was good. That was fun. It was nice to meet. It was people, different people. It was nice to meet them and hear what was going on. So we're going to continue on next year for this and hopefully grow it a little bit bigger and better.
All right, thank you. Committee reports. Anything anyone wants to add? Seeing none, other business, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
This meeting is adjourned.
got a lot done.